Welcome back to the preview show. Yes, we are back. It is good to be back. Sorry for the apologies for the long delay. I don't want to. I had some personal stuff I had to take care of.
It's good to be back.
It is good to be back. Seriously. The thing is, I decided, hey, let's start this back up again. I was at a racetrack last week. And I had a blast. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this again. Let's do this again. So,
yeah.
So we're gonna do this again. Jonathan, good to have you back, buddy.
Yeah, good to have you back, and good to shine a light on the show and have some fun today.
All right. Of course, as you know, of course, we'll be back throughout the season, and and apologies if we missed something, but a lot of our friends, Jonathan and all our friends will be on here. Mitchell Brewer, RJ Starsvik, Nathan Solomon, Harry Loomis, Marty Zakala, who knows, Taylor Kitchen. We could have a driver on here too. You never know. So lots of stuff happening. NASCAR is going to Nashville this week. But before we get into that, I do want to pay tribute to a man who was before his time. Of course, I'm talking about Bruton Smith, who passed away at the age of 95. A living legend, of course, the founder of Speedway Motorsports. They own, of course, Bruton Smith built Charlotte Motor Speedway. Of course, they own Bristol Motor Speedway. Lots of tracks, Sonoma, Texas. Help me out here. New Hampshire. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Now they just acquired Dover and Nashville, who we're going to today. Of course, out of all this, we're going to one of the newest acquisitions of SMI. So funny stuff there. Of course, also Atlanta, they own as well. So Las Vegas. Yeah. Of course, not just NASCAR, but IndyCar as well. They've held some races there. Of course, IndyCar raced at Texas for a long time. Of
Sonoma. Just were.
Yeah. And of course the NHRA as well, with the the creation of the the 4Y Nationals at Charlotte ZMAX Dragway and as well as Vegas. So lots of fun things happened under under Bruton Smith's tenure with SMI.
Yeah, you name it, and Bruton Smith did it. When it comes to revolutionizing the way track management and really the race car business was. He goes all the way back to 1944 when he first got his first ever race car, and he raced against the likes of Joe Weatherly and Buck Baker. Began promoting in 1945, and he even acquired a strictly stock series that is believed to have actually accelerated the growth of NASCAR's strictly stock series. So, of course, if you know what the strictly stock series is now, it's the NASCAR Cup Series. So Bruton Smith pushing the envelope, with Charlotte Motor Speedway, with getting that track to have races run under the lights. Of course, one hot night, one of the most memorable races in NASCAR history. As well as, starting up SMI back in 1984, he formally founded the company and making it the first ever publicly traded company. Lived a really great long life. I mean, even back 10 years ago, Bruton Smith, this is a report from Forbes 500, of course, he was the oldest CEO on that list. So you want to talk about someone who lived a great long life, who left a lasting legacy. That's Bruton Smith right there. And of course, he is going to be very dearly missed.
Yeah, of course. And of course, SMI is in good hands. I mean, I know that many people may have liked some of his ideas. But they're out there, they're bold and out there, and of course, his son Marcus will kind of continue the tradition. Of course, many people were chiming in, from Richard Petty to Rick Hendrick to Don Hawk, who used to work at SMI. Of course,
Jim France.
Jim France as well. Lots of big key people in the Charlotte industry and just in the world. It was also a really tough day in the sports world. Of course, Tony Saragusa, another one, and of course, Of course, we lost 2 Ravens players as well. So,
It's been a tough offseason for NFL players for sure.
yeah, it has.
Tough day yesterday.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. I don't know how we'll transition from that, but as
Well,
Smith
we'll
would
say
like,
as much. We'll say as much. May they all rest in peace. Great lasting legacies on the world. And
but
as Rhodes Smith says,
show must go on. Of course, so we're going to one of his tracks this weekend. Of course, one of the newest tracks to SMI, Nashville Super Speedway. Of course, that was acquired by Speedway Motorsports last year. Of course, that and Dover. So we're going to Nashville this weekend. Cup Series back after its one and only off week. What do we think about heading into there this weekend?
I think of the momentum that Trackhouse is carrying into this weekend. I mean, it's been beaten like a dead horse that, we're beating a dead horse here when we're talking about Trackhouse having a lot of momentum and being a very, dare I say, evolutionary, maybe revolutionary team to NASCAR, with what Justin Marks and Pitbull are doing, but what Daniel Suarez and Ross Chastain are doing on track. Daniel Suarez, of course, won last week, a big win. It's very rare you see the LA Times talk about NASCAR just in a weekday posting of an article or something, but I saw that today. The LA Times posted about Daniel Suarez's win and how much of an impact it's having. So it's exciting to see, what that team is doing. And I think this weekend it's going to carry on because last year, if Kyle Larson, after leading 260 some laps, 264 at the end of the day, of course, if he would have stumbled at any point in those last couple laps, Ross Chastain would have been there with that Ganassi number 42. So I anticipate Ross Chastain is going to be good again this weekend. Daniel Suarez is going to be pretty strong this weekend as well. Looking for Trackhouse, Michael McDowell even, he cracked the top 20 in points as of last week. I mean, I don't think any of us, there was a lot of things that we didn't expect for this season, but Michael McDowell cracking the top 20 on points, really working his way up as opposed to last year, where it was kind of like won the 500 and then had a fall throughout the season in points. Of course, got to the playoffs, kind of saved him a little, but yeah, up to 20th. He has 6 top 10s on the season so far. That's his best he's done so far. He's outdoing Kurt Busch, or actually tying Kurt Busch right now. So good to see him running well. And of course, I could have said this 10 years ago. I could have said this 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Hendrick Motorsports. The great empire. It's like the New York Yankees. No matter how much changes, they're still on top and they're still doing great. So,
yeah. Speaking of you talked about Michael McDowell. Just wanted to plug this. I did talk to Michael McDowell last week during the off week. So my good friends at Front Row Motorsports helped set that up, and appreciate all that FRM does with all that. So yeah, it was fun to talk to McDowell last week, and we kind of talked about that. This is one of the best seasons that Front Row has had. It's this next gen car continues to impress. But it's time for one of our favorite segments of the show, where I hit Jonathan with a bunch of questions. Who knows what's going to happen during this? It's of course time for Gas and Go. All right, first one up. Let's talk about some of the races last week. We talked about that Knoxville truck race. Does Knoxville have a future in NASCAR? Go ahead.
I think so. The thing is, NASCAR needs to collaborate with the dirt community there, because it's just like Indianapolis Motor Speedway. When you go to Knoxville, you're playing on their turf. And I think just with the world we live in, the motorsports world we live in, if there was a collaboration between NASCAR and the World of Outlaws, similar to what IndyCar and NASCAR do for the Indy Road Course, I think that would have a great future secured for the truck series at Knoxville. So I think so, if they make the right moves.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely interesting there. And of course, the trucks are in action this weekend in Nashville. By the way, they've been going at it for 8 straight weeks. So that was actually our last show that we did at Darlington when Mitchell and I taped the last previous show. That was 8 weeks ago. So going to be fun stuff there. Of course, they're going to be off next week, and then they're going to be at Mid-Ohio. And by the way, there could be a surprise for Mid-Ohio from the Nice Motorsports team. Still trying to work out some of the details. Cody Efa may have hinted on Victory Lane with Davey Siegel. That could be a fun thing happening. Don't want to
We
talk
have an
about
idea.
it yet, but it's not official, so we're not going to talk about that yet. But if it does happen, it's going to be fun. So for sure. Okay, so the truck. Let's stick with the trucks for a second. There was only 3 races left after this weekend: Nashville, Mid-Ohio, and Pocono to finish out the season. So what are we expecting? 3 different tracks. We got a 1/3 oval in Nashville, a road course in Mid-Ohio where the Truck Series has never ever been to. And then we got Pocono, the tricky triangle. And of course, it'll be on Big Fox at high noon. So fun stuff there. What do we expect? What are we going to expect out of in these last 3 races?
I like that wording, Big Fox on high noon. I think it's high noon for a couple of these playoff bubble drivers to really get on the wheel. Yeah. You got Derek Kraus, you have Matt DiBenedetto. After Sonoma, I felt really good about Matt DiBenedetto's chances to make the playoffs, but he struggled at Knoxville. Didn't really have as great of a race as I thought he was going to. Fell back to 43 points behind the cut line. Derek Kraus, on the other hand, had a really good race, scored a good 6th place finish. I think the current field is going to remain pretty stable. I don't really see much movement unless Derek Kraus can really get up on and have some good runs. Also, can we talk about Tanner Gray as well? It's been crazy to watch his fall from the top 5 in points, looking like one of the best trucks out there, to 13th and not even in contention. It's been wild to see that.
Yeah, I talked to DGR last week, and it's like, he started off so hot, and then it was like that team just fell apart. And if anyone can get really back there, it's Jerry Baxter and that 15 team. So we're gonna have to kind of see. They're gonna have to change a few things, and they're gonna have to get some solid runs together, because it's just DGR has just been not performing. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously they won last week, but between Tanner and all the bad luck Haley's had, it's just not been a good year for DGR at points in the year. So hopefully they get a good run out of them. All right. Guess what's also back after multiple weeks off? The Xfinity Series. Remember them?
I remember them.
Yeah, it's the last time we left them, they were at Portland, and AJ Allmendinger won. The craziness that was Portland International Raceway, of course, which you're a big fan of, and you've been the number 1 advocate for NASCAR getting out to that area after traveling there. And I think you went to Washington one year. It's like,
Washington, Oregon.
Yeah, NASCAR needs to come out there, and eventually, I think that that's another topic for another day. What do we think about the Xfinity Series? A couple. What are you most looking forward to this weekend?
I think it's going to be interesting to see the race there. What we saw last year, of course, we saw Kyle Busch going out and essentially smacking the field in that race. But this year, we don't have that as much. Of course, we have Tyler Reddick in the 48, but it's a pretty wide open field, I would say. I think we're going to see some fun racing. It's going to be interesting to see how treat the track as well. See Parker Retzlaff come back. And Jeffrey Earnhardt, of course, in the 26. So it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to watch. I want to see how Ty Gibbs does after a few weeks off. Sam Mayer needs a solid weekend this week after he had mechanical issues at Portland. So yeah, I'm looking for that one team to have a really strong run at Nashville this coming weekend. Let's talk about Kevin Harvick for a second. He's currently 17th in the standings right now, just outside the cut line. Is there a chance that Kevin Harvick misses the playoffs this year, or do you think he gets in? Or I think the question should be, do you think Kevin Harvick gets in the playoffs, or does he miss the playoffs?
I think there's definitely a chance Harvick could miss the playoffs, just because this season it feels like you have to be good, and then you have to be a step above good to get into the playoffs. It's not like he can be very consistent and then grab a spot. And I just haven't quite seen that from Harvick, to where he can have race winning speed and get himself into the playoffs. Just looking at the standings right now, you have guys like Tyler Reddick and Eric Jones and even Austin Dillon to some extent. He's shown flashes. Chris Buescher, who I think have somewhat of a better chance again to Victor Lane over Harvick. That might sound odd, but they've shown the strength and shown the capabilities to win races that I just haven't seen out of Harvick. So I think he could make the playoffs, but he's going to have to up his performance, up his game some as he gets to the playoffs. If there's anybody who could do it, it's definitely Kevin Harvick. He could definitely do it.
Absolutely. He may be 46 years old, but he still knows how to get around a racetrack. So for sure. Let's talk about Brad Keselowski for a sec. How would you evaluate the 6 team this year? Just not all of RFK, not the 17 team, just the 6 team.
As far as the 16 goes, that penalty really set them back. I mean, 100-point penalty, 10 playoff points. I mean, the playoff points haven't really mattered now just because he's been so far back. But I would say it is going exactly like how Brad Keselowski thought it would go. Not the greatest season of all, but a season to really get the momentum going, get things rolling, get the groundwork there, and build toward that championship that may come. He alluded to his first 3 seasons. Of course, 2010, he didn't really run too well, had some flashes. 11 got better. 12, he was the champion. So I think it's kind of going that way. It's what we expected, but that's okay.
Just remember when he came into Team Penske, remember where they were at that time. So, and kind of doing the same to another legendary race team. We'll have to see really how that kind of goes. There's a lot of talk about, this is the usual time where we talk, and obviously we've been away, so I haven't got your thoughts on this, but it's that time of the year when people start to figure out what's going on for next year. The biggest question is what happens at Joe Gibbs Racing with Martin Truex Jr., what his status could be. We don't know what Kyle Busch status could look like. I know there's also a lot of drivers that don't have contracts for next year. Obviously, they're still trying to negotiate, but it's way too early in the process. But as we kind of shift to the NBC portion of the year, we start to those talks start to, kind of pick up a little bit. So do you have any silly season predictions? Obviously, the biggest ones is, what do you think happens with Kyle Busch? Does Martin Truex Jr. come back next year?
Well, I think I don't even think JGR is the biggest wild card in this silly season discussion. Yeah. Personally, the way I see it, Denny's going to stay. Christopher Bell's likely going to stay. There's been talks of a tech company signing on and joining Kyle Busch. I mean, Yahoo, which has done extensive stuff with the team. I think that might be that tech sponsor that comes in. Crazy to think Yahoo would sponsor. I did not see that coming, sponsoring a full-time Cup ride. Truex, I think he's going to stay, to be honest with you. Just looking at the landscape right now, Joe Gibbs doesn't want to move Ty Gibbs up too soon. And I think next season would probably classify as too soon under Joe's criteria. And I don't see any free agents taking a 1-year deal with JGR, because as much as it would be a great opportunity, we've seen in cases like Daniel Suarez where even if you are with a big team, it doesn't always, turn out like you would think it would. So I think Martin Truex Jr. will stay. We got to talk about that 10 car though. I know I'm well out of time, but we got to talk about that 10 car though.
Yeah. Who gets that, you think?
So I think this is interesting here, because there's a number of different names, who either have a contract up or who could move up from the lower series. John Hunter Nemechek's name has been floated. Nothing confirmed, of course. I want to fully disclaim that before we start talking about this stuff. Nothing is confirmed about any of this at all. John Hunter Nemechek's name has been floated. Some people have brought up Ricky Stenhouse Jr. If JTD Doherty and him don't re-up together for next season. Ryan Preece, of course. Honestly, I think it's wide open right now for that ride.
Yeah,
I really do. What do you think, Casey?
Well, yeah, I'm going to add this. I did talk, obviously, as you know, I talked with the JTG camp a few weeks ago,
Mhm.
and talk to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. from and I'm just going to say it from my perspective and things that I've heard from that camp. The intention is to bring Ricky Stenhouse Jr. back to JT.
Mhm.
That's been my understanding of this, and I don't really see it's really really happy right now talking with with partners and stuff with Kroger is just ecstatic with what's going on right now with the 47 team, and they're putting some solid runs together the past few weeks. So
They
they really
are.
like what they're doing. It's I would honestly be, and this is just not being being in the know.
Mhm.
It's just he and Brian Patty got a really good chemistry going right now. And of course, those
Sure.
two have been together for so long. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah. And that team is, you're right. I think JTG Doherty would be crazy not to bring him back,
right.
just with how they've done and the sponsor Kroger behind them,
Yeah.
you know, kind of the view is like, Stenhouse runs so well, at certain points, kind of perked up the ears of some teams. But yeah, you're right. I think JTG Doherty, they're definitely, they've got to be happy with that.
Yeah, and then all the talks about JTG is going to shut down and all that. Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
Hmm.
And I'm just going to say that right now. They're
Hmm.
they're not going anywhere. From the
For
people
sure.
I've talked to, they are not going anywhere. And I've talked with people at the team. They've said, yeah, we're not going anywhere.
Two
Uh,
committed owners, Brad
oh,
Doherty,
yeah,
Tad and Jody Geschechter.
yeah, I know
Yeah.
there's some other owner. I know some other owners are behind the scenes as well. So, yeah, it's a good one. Well, you know what time it is?
Good
We
deal.
haven't done this yet, but it's time for the picks.
Ooh.
Of course, the show hasn't been aired in a while, but consistently the picks have still happened because we still have our previous show points championship. Um, as an update right now, you and Mitchell are in a pretty good battle. You're just 8 points behind Mitchell. I know Nathan and Marty got a tough hill to climb. I think I'm in it as well a little bit, and then RJ and Loomis. Oh boy, they're down at the bottom.
We
It's
love them.
Loomis is about to get on Brock Beard's last car article, or last place, I should say.
Ooh.
He might get a
Shade.
last place article. I'm like, oh boy, Loomis would like that though.
With all the shade you're throwing, you're making these picks pretty cool. What's yours?
Oh goodness gracious. Um,
I'll throw it to you.
Jeez. Look at Jonathan with the dad jokes over here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's start with ARCA at Elko. And by the way, fun time at ARCA. If you haven't not been to Berlin Raceway, you need to go because it's a fun track. Jeff Striegel, of course, the same Jeff Striegel that you hear on MRN. Of course, is the GM of Berlin Raceway. That is a fun racetrack. I had a blast, and I can't thank my friends at ARCA enough for letting me in and covering that race. And Sammy Smith won. Just led 8 laps on the day. Heartbreaker for Daniel Dye. Led 192 laps. They're going to be at Elko this weekend. Our good friend Mitchell Brewer is going to be out there. He's going to be joining front stretch's own Mark Crystal out there at Elko. So who you got, buddy? Of course, you're a fellow Minnesotian.
Well, I actually asked you for your picks, but I'll go ahead. All right. It's tradition. It's okay.
Yeah.
So for the ARCA race, I think Daniel Dye is going to get some redemption. I think he's going to win out there. It's going to be a lot of fun to see. I hope it's a closer battle between Daniel Dye and Sammy Smith, because as you know, Daniel Dye was walking away with it last week before he had his issues. So I hope we see a fun battle between Dye and Sammy, because those two would be really fun to see race together.
And also, Chad Bryant had won up till that point. Chad Bryant won the last 3 races at Berlin Raceway. He won in 16 with Dalton Sargent. Then he won in 2018 with Joe Graff. And then in 21 with Daniel Dye. So he knows that racetrack pretty well. Obviously, he had some issues in the ignition box. That's what Daniel told me when I talked to him after the race. And just that team has just faced some terrible luck this season. But to be different, because I always like to be, I'm going to take Sammy Smith. That 18 team is rolling this weekend. I think now that Sammy's got some announcements that You know, he's going to run some Xfinity starts and literally going to make his first start next week at Road America. So,
Yeah,
it's
great to see.
Oh yeah, it's going to be fun. Of course, he just turned 18. It's a good kid. Talked with him a lot last week, and he's gonna be good in that. And gonna be driving the 18, so he'll be a tough one to beat when we get to Road America next week. But
it's fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
It's fun.
It's gonna,
especially his ties to the Annett family. You saw Pilot Flying J
Yep.
and TMC Transportation on their I talked with Sam as well, and he described Harold Annett, Michael Annett's dad, as one of his racing heroes. So very close ties with those guys, and that's cool. Sammy's a talented driver.
By the way, Michael Annett, happy birthday. It is Michael Annett's birthday today. So
hey.
Yeah, there we go. Nice tie in there. Like that?
That was pretty good.
All right. Okay, now the business comes apart, and you gotta make sure you gotta watch your picks there, because you're just 8 points behind Mitchell in the championship standings. So good stuff there. We start with trucks. Who you got, bud?
It's a small points lead, but it keeps growing and it tears at my heart. But one guy who warms my heart, especially after his very fun press conference last year at Phoenix, is Ben Rhodes. And I think he's going to get it done this weekend.
You were at that press conference.
That was wild. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we talked to Ben Rhodes like 3 days after. Fun guy. Ben Rhodes, I've known for a long time. It's good dude. Loves the truck series. I'm gonna go with John Hunter Nemechek. I think this is KBM's on fire. They've won, I think, the last couple truck races, and obviously before Knoxville. Well, they won the ARCA race last week, so they've won, I think, the last 3 weeks in a row in something. So I think that the trend's going to continue at Nashville, in that one. So yeah, I'm gonna pick back for more, John Hunter Nemechek. Today is the day, I guess.
Oh.
That was for you, John Hunter.
There you go.
Okay, let's go to Xfinity. Haven't seen the Xfinity series in a while, since Portland, as I mentioned before. I'm going to start it off. And, I always like to pick, JRM's been on fire the last few weeks. I think it's something to watch, but I think that 7 car is going to really going to do it. Justin Allgaier, I think, is going to get it done. Everyone talks about the 9 and the 8, and even people talk about Sam with how good he's been running the last few weeks. Also, Taylor Moyer is back on the box this week for Sam Mayer. He returns from the farm after his suspensions after that, but he'll be on top of the box this week. And but I'm gonna go with the 7 car. Who you got, bud?
That's a pretty good pick, because last year the driver of the 54 won the race and Justin Allgaier was in second. And I think the same thing is going to happen again this year, because I think Ty Gibbs is going to win in that number 54 car. I mean, he's been unstoppable, except under caution one time. But nonetheless, I think he's going to get it done this weekend in Nashville. This is just a track that really lends itself to drivers who have been doing well throughout the season. I think that's going to happen again this weekend in Nashville.
So you're going to stick with the Gibbs?
If you say so, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, one of my classic preview show phrases is "stick with the Gibbs." Of course, you got to, right? Of course, Ty Gibbs hasn't won since Richmond, so I don't know since Ty Gibbs won. I think we're due for a Ty Gibbs win, aren't we?
Yeah.
We say that every week, and it,
Good. I have to say though, good pick on Allgaier though, because of course, going back to when they used to run at Nashville Super Speedway from 01 to 11, Allgaier had 6 starts at the track, 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s, a very successful driver at the track. So I think that's a pretty good pick there. That's a good one. He'll finish second though.
Okay. All right. Yeah, maybe you'll pass Mitchell this week. All right, our cup. All right, the Cup Series, the Ally 400. Seen Alex Bowman's car? It looks awesome. Of course, Dale Jr. and of course his new collaboration with Ally. course, all of that, what Ally does. Andrew Brimmer and that team do an excellent job in promoting the sport. Who you got this weekend?
So for the second time this year and redeeming his loss at Gateway, I think it's going to be Kyle Busch. He's been pretty good on like these types of track. This is like a cross between like an intermediate and a flat track. Gateway was just like that. This is going to be a good weekend. I'm going to pick Kyle Busch. He also has a lot of experience at Nashville Super Speedway. Won the Xfinity race last year. Of course, you remember back in the day when he smashed the guitar.
The guitar, yep.
Very sad. I don't think he's going to smash a guitar, but he's definitely going to win
when he won the Xfinity race. So.
That's true. So, I think he faked it out, but yeah, Kyle Busch is my pick. Who you got, Casey?
I'm going to go with Joey Logano this week. I think that 22 team, to get his third win of the season. No one's been talking about Joey Logano, even though he's won 2 races. Joey Logano is going to get it done again. So
there you go.
Third win of the season. The first driver to get to 3 wins, if I'm not mistaken. We talk about all these winners. I wouldn't be surprised if a new winner won. So
throw out a fun fact real quick here for you. William Byron, who has won 2 races, of course, it's tied for the most this season.
Yeah.
He has 5 top 10s on the season. Michael McDowell, who we were talking about earlier in the show, has 6. So Michael McDowell has more top 10s this season than William Byron so far.
And McDowell's talked about how excited he was to get to Nashville. So should be a fun one there. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this weekend's preview show. And of course, you can watch all the action this weekend across there. Remember, it's on. Of course, this is the first weekend where NBC takes over the Cup and Xfinity Series. Fox will still have the Truck Series the rest of the year. We'll also have select ARCA races along with, of course, MAV TV, which of course the ARCA race will be on at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Should be a good one from Elko. Of course, you were there last year. It's a tight little racetrack.
It's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun standing up on one of the mounds that was not being used by the spotter or the spotters. You go round and round and round and watch the racing. You get dizzy. And it's a lot of fun. Last year was a lot of fun too. Saw Corey Heim and Ty Gibbs battle it out. Great race. Always good crowd. Good time there.
Should be a fun one. Minnesota race fans, nothing like it.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, you would know because you are from Minnesota. So a
little biased, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, but they're still good. All right, we will talk to you next week. You never know who's going to be on that side of things. We'll talk about Road America next week.